What's up, everyone? So, episode 10, big deal. We don't have one guest. We don't have two guests. We have three guests. So, truly, Fowler and Friends, plural, is in session today. We got an awesome group of guys here today, all of them near and dear to my heart. Here's the deal. I'll have each of you introduce yourselves. We'll start with the floating head, the wizard behind the curtain. If you'll introduce yourself, Mr. Hopwood.
Daniel Hopwood, longtime friend, first time, got on the pod. Happy to be here. I'm the resident Singapore expert.
Excellent, no doubt. Mitch?
Mitch, we met, like 2 years ago?
Year and a half?
Yeah, something kind of recent through Sean. So, yeah, out here in Denver, which is where we're at now, running the pod. Is this the first time it's outside of the state?
This is the first time I've filmed outside the state, yeah.
Let's go.
We've had some out-of-state guests, but first time me being out of state.
So, yeah. Colorado pod. Excited to run it.
And man four on the couch.
Yeah, Sean. I've known Jake since, we've been locker buddies since, 7th grade?
Yeah, 6th, 7th grade.
And, I've picked up a Hopwood and Mitch along the way. So, yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here. So for those of you wondering why we have four guests today, so a couple years ago, well, actually a year ago, the four of us went on a trip, and we called it Ballz Deep Retreat. And there's a little bit of lore behind that. Sean and I used to be roommates, and Sean and I were super excited and full of energy, and we were like, okay, how can we make the most of a day? Because, him and I were both working. The idea was, when we have a clear schedule, how can we make the most? What can we do? How can we really seize the day? And we started doing it, and then eventually we were like, what if we called it a Ballz Deep Day? And so every once in a while, we would schedule one of these in, and we would make it happen. And then I moved to North Carolina. Sean, you kind of continued the tradition here with Mitch. So did you guys do one or two? And what?
Yeah, we did a couple, I think. Right?
Yeah, we did Lifetime. Or Esporta.
Yeah, we did the Murph the one time. The Murph
yeah,
challenge.
God, yeah, my shoulders hurt like hell after that.
Yeah.
What was your time when you did the Murph?
Sean did it 15 minutes faster than I did. I remember that because he was done and I was still doing fucking push-ups. But yeah, I want to say my best ever was an hour. Right? Yeah, you did it quick.
Yeah, it was my first time doing it with you.
But I think your first time doing it ever though.
Yeah, first time doing it ever. But I think going back to just what Ballz Deep Day is, I think when we were living together in 2019, we had really inverted schedules. Mm-hmm. Where you worked late nights and I worked early mornings to the afternoon, and so we never saw each other despite being roommates. And so when we wanted to make sure that we had quality time where we could spend together doing things physically, mentally, and just socially with each other. So I think for me that was one of the biggest value. The biggest pieces of value from it was just being able to spend more time with you, because I feel I never saw you for the first few months when you were at ESA.
Yeah, 100%. Well, there's something about structured fun with a loose structure to allow for freedom to have fun little side adventures and really just kind of take the day as it comes, but also have some structure to it. And despite you and I having different passions in terms of what we hope to accomplish career-wise and some different interests, we also have a lot of overlapping interests. And so part of the fun was also you sharing what was going on, in your sort of realm of work, and then me sharing what was going on in my realm of work.
By just wanting to be better.
Unified by wanting to be better, and unified in our stokedness for each other to succeed and for our ideas to come to fruition. So it's you would have an idea and I'd be like, oh my God, tell me more about it. I don't understand it because I don't come from your world. So that was always a big part of it. So it eventually morphed into, okay, so we got to do something physical. We got to share what we're working on, talk about goals, bounce ideas off each other.
Well, do you want to walk through just what a schedule for a Ballz Deep, the original ones were? Because we wake up early and then we kind of
So despite it being an off day, we would get up early, and we would usually start with a run or going to the gym or something like that, and we would make breakfast together. And so everything was sort of together. And then I think initially we would like break off because we were working on different certifications or whatnot. So you would do your thing, I would do my thing for however long. Then we would come together, discuss what we did. And then after that, it would be about sort of discussing what we hoped would come to fruition from the work that we were putting in. And, you know, some of it was a little bit more out there and less grounded in reality. And some of it, you know, has paid off to this day. And
I think like us being in different domains was kind of a feature to it because you'd have to explain what you were doing, which was pretty complicated, like in nutrition and like physical or personal training and things like that. And mine was more like on the product side of everything. And so being able, while I was learning about that, being able to like translate that and someone who's not in that world was, I think, really valuable because it helped me. You were asking questions that, you know, people in that space probably wouldn't ask because you take a lot of things for granted when you are like really deep into a domain. So I think like being in different disciplines was really, really helpful in getting me to kind of understand, you know, what I was like working on. And I think, you know, vice versa.
Yeah, well, it definitely made me feel more well-rounded, even though like I technically couldn't do what you did. You were able to bring me up to speed in terms of me being conversationally literate. And then once I understood the gist, it was about, okay, now I see where you're going. And I can say, well, what about this? Or what about that? And vice versa. And so also I think a big part of it was just getting stoked and building a sense of hunger within ourselves. So I'm stoked on your hunger to want to succeed and pursue what you're going after. And you were stoked likewise on me wanting to get after it. And so part of it was a celebration of discipline and showing that, you know, you can have a good time and chase your goals with.
Well, and we could end the day, like we had a pool. So
and enjoy it. And so it was a very balanced day. Like you got after it physically, mentally, you had a great time. And, you know, sometimes the discussions would be a bit more cerebral, a little bit more emotional, like talking through life problems, you know, girl troubles, all that sort of thing. And so it would end being such a fulfilling day. And then by the time you end up hanging out and chilling at the end of it,
well, it's easier to enjoy that once you like check boxes.
Exactly. It was easier to enjoy it. And, you know, life is to be enjoyed. And so that was also part of going balls deep was, yes, we got after it and we worked hard, but we also are here to have a good time when we can. And so that was awesome. And then I moved away, and Sean, you must have been hungry for some more despite me not being there. And so you want to talk a little bit, you know, about how you and Mitch how you shared the idea with him and, you know, how he kind of vibed off it. You guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you're just down for like anything.
Yeah.
So it was like pretty easy. We met through a mutual friend and then, just told you about it. And you're like, let's do a day.
Yeah. And I felt the same way whenever we did that. It was just like, I remember like getting lunch at Town Hall after, and it was just like we just like earned it. Like when you on a Saturday to just like go that hard for whatever 6-8 hours. Yeah, it just felt really good. So yeah, I mean that's what spawned us all getting together and running it. What was that, last March?
Yeah, March 23. And during that time, obviously, so Hopwood and I did cross country together, and so I was a year ahead of him school wise, and so him and I did cross country together. So we had a little bit of background, and Hoppy also went to OU, but we didn't see each other as much, and so we weren't in communication really. So Sean, you were talking with Hoppy, and Sean, you were, you know, doing the Ballz Deep Day with Mitch, and so you're almost like the Nick Fury of the Ballz Deep boys in the sense that, you know,
so then we'd be the Avengers, is that?
Yeah. I mean, you know, humbly the Avengers.
No big deal.
Yeah. Don't even worry about it.
Just a Scottsdale event.
So when we did the Ballz Deep retreat, it was my first time meeting Mitch. Like I flew in super late.
That's right.
And I woke up.
That was my first time meeting both of you guys.
Yeah.
I just realized whenever I feel like I've known you for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Both of you guys. But not even a year and a half that I've known either of you. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. And you know, I want each of you to kind of speak to this, but for me, I just implicitly trust Sean. And even though I knew Hopwood from back in the day, I hadn't spoken with him in a few years. And so Mitch, despite not knowing you at all, I knew the reason we were all there because Sean had explained to Hopwood way to Ballz Deep Day was you guys had done them together. And so even though that morning I was just kind of by myself and Mitch, you walked out or you might have been already up, but we just started talking and the vibes were pretty immaculate right away because I knew why you were here. You were here to have a good time and to get after it and to share and to like be open and vulnerable and also just like do some sick hikes and you know, and food was also a part of it. Like we
had 2 dinners one day.
We had 2 immaculate dinners. Like we did you know, Hopwood showed us his prowess in the acai bowl realm. And actually, speaking of that, Hopwood.
And all his supplements. He gave us a supplement.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Despite me being the nutrition coach, Hopwood,
he's a pharmacist.
He's a pharmacist. And I had an acai smoothie today with peanut butter in it. And we all thought it was good, but I was like, shit, does this have the Hopwood seal of approval? I don't know if it's Hopwood worthy.
Dude, I had one here the other day that was so expensive, and I was eating it. I was like, this isn't it. Like,
didn't meet the standard.
No, and it was like $20. It was so expensive, but I was like craving one so bad, and I was like, what?
It came out to like $20 US. Like that's what it would be.
It would have been like $17 US.
Damn,
that's a lot.
That's legit.
That's a lot.
Given it was bigger, but it was not the quality I was looking for.
I'm so sorry that happened to you.
We got an acai when we were. I saw Hopwood in Orlando over like in December, and we got acai there.
Those acai really sucked.
Yeah. Really bad.
But yeah, I was pumped whenever Sean told me like just that you guys were down to do all that stuff, and then so we had the physical stuff that we were doing. We just got super lucky with Airbnb that had like
it was a dream.
Yeah, the whole gym outside.
Had
a rack and bench, and like we were doing lunges like around the pool with dumbbells, and it was just like I don't know. I love that shit. Like the fact that we could just chill, hang out, get to know each other, learn about everybody was working in.
We were those outside
domains.
TVs that we could like project.
Yeah, it just felt the perfect balance of productive and just relaxing and
you can scout out
recharging too.
You got that eye for it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And then we also had the cold plunges because it was getting down to like 50 at night, and the pool wasn't heated, so we could do the AM cold plunge. So that was sick. So
yeah, there was people in the guest house though.
Yeah, I just love that.
Yeah, remember?
Oh no, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Some hood music out there. Just like jumping in the pool and it's 50 degrees. And, but yeah, it was fun. It was an awesome trip. Went for some runs. Yeah.
Little hike.
Yeah, a little hike.
So Hopwood, do you want to speak to your experience during the BDR and kind of what you took?
Yeah, I mean, like Sean and I have been, talking about, kind of everything and anything for a couple of years now. And I hadn't lived in Ohio for a while. And, I, like you said, Jake, like I knew you from cross country growing up, but we hadn't really connected in a long time. And, but, this will sound funny, but I obviously still followed you on Instagram. And like, I remember seeing you one day and I was like, why the fuck is Jake so jacked? Like, holy shit. And Sean was like, oh yeah, he's like a personal trainer now and stuff. And then Sean told me about Mitch and like him running his like agency and stuff. And, obviously I knew Sean. I was like, yeah, this sounds like a great group of people that are all ambitious, but do entirely different things and bringing us all together for a few days and kind of like meshing all of our experiences and, bouncing ideas off one another and kind of just getting each other up to speed on what we do and how we can all think differently and, kind of cross-pollinate what we do was super interesting to me. And so, when Sean brought it up, I was super down.
Yeah. Your point is on the money in the sense that the mindset was all there, right? And so us being all there for the same reason, it made it so easy to just be like, yep, we're down, we're having a good time. And then having those sort of experiences in real time creates bonding in addition to the fact that, we already knew that we were there. And so going forward from the retreat, and, we can talk more about it, but we continued also to stay connected and more or less have monthly little catch-ups, ranging from like 30 minutes to an hour. And we've been pretty consistent, I'd say, with that for the past 6 to 8 months. And I know even outside of our get-togethers, like we also all reach out to each other individually, and
Group chat.
we have a group chat, and I can speak personally. Like, there are certain things that have happened since the BDR were not in existence, that are in existence now, that probably were expedited because of that. This podcast definitely being an example. I can't even remember if this time last year, when we were doing the BDR, it was just an idea and I wasn't even fully committed. I don't even know if we talked about it, but I mean,
yeah, we did. I think you had brought it up saying that people had told you should do one, but I can't remember if you were. I think you were still thinking of the like format and topic, because and this may be me thinking of something else, but I feel like you talk something about like it being movies oriented or something.
Yes. So that was the origin. And so when I was in college, I really wanted to do a YouTube movie review channel. And because I was watching a lot of them at a time, and instead of not movies, I was watching movies a lot, but I was watching a lot of movie reviews at the time, and I wasn't doing my schoolwork. I was just like watching movies and having a good time. And so I was like, you know what? Like, you should do this. I think it would be fun to have a review channel from like a young sort of college-based perspective, and have it be really fun. And I made an email and a YouTube channel, and that was it. I never posted anything. I got cold feet. So I was like, ooh, like, I'm going to be putting myself out there. That is scary. What if people don't like it? And, the fact of the matter is, no one's watching it the first few times that you do it. I mean, even with the pod, like, still very much growing the audience, still very much in the early stage, but you kind of have to just be like, fuck it. You have to put something out, and then you just kind of start workshopping it. But, being around people like you guys who take calculated risk makes it a little bit easier, because you're also kind of thinking like, oh, I'm not crazy. Like, this is something I should pursue. These guys are pursuing what they want to pursue, and, they're taking some risk and putting themselves out there. And so it made me feel not alone, and made me feel a lot more okay with the process of like, okay, this is something that I can do, and I can bounce ideas off these guys, and we'll shape it as we go. And so I can definitely say that having made this group somewhat informally initially, and a little bit more formally now, has been very rewarding, at least just to know that you have some guys in your corner, but also just to have the sort of group think tank to then refine your ideas and apply them in real time.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And so, Hopwood, you had mentioned something about Mitch's agency. Mitch, you kind of want to explain what you got going on?
Yeah, sure.
Talking about.
So when I was in college, I went to Ohio State, and my sophomore year started a video production agency. Just was making a bunch of trip videos with friends, got some gear, did real estate videos, and then weddings, and other videos kind of throughout college, kind of just like work that I would do through college just for, side money. And then built up a big enough client base that when I graduated in 2019, I jumped in full time, and I was doing that full time until moving out here a couple months ago. And now I'm just managing a remote, kind of part time. But yeah, video production agency. We do video production, animation, motion graphics for all different types of, mostly like corporate companies. And stuff, but yeah, a lot of our business is done in Columbus. We have a team of 10 editors, video producers, cinematographers that are all based in Columbus, kind of doing the actual production piece. And then I have another partner. He and I are managing like the operations and kind of the business side of things. So yeah, we got the LLC in summer of 2015, July of 2015.
Jeez,
so
I didn't know it was
9
that
years.
old. Jeez,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah. it wasn't like, really a company. I don't feel like until I graduated, or like just before, probably like that year before I graduated. So, but yeah, it's been cool. I mean, work with some like decent sized logos and clients now, and learned a ton obviously through that whole process, just like coming right out of school and doing that, and just like having to grind out. And that's something that Sean and I like first connected with whenever we met through a mutual friend, was just that entrepreneurial sort of energy. And just
what was the coolest client or shoot that you ever did? Because I know you traveled out to like Mykonos or something for it.
That was that was the most fun one. That was we went to the Maldives and did a video at this resort. But I would say the one that like I am probably the most proud of, and like felt like it was like the biggest step to this point, was a shoot that we did at the end of last year, sometime in 2023, I think. Maybe the beginning of 2023. It was for this insurance tech company in Denver, actually. They're based in Denver. That I'd worked with their head of marketing before at a different company. She moved to this bigger company, and we put together this campaign they were launching a new website and a bunch of new products. And it was like 18 people on set at one time. 9 of it was crew, and then we had actors, and I directed it. And
sick.
It was just the first, or like that level up in the production where you like watch something that like looks like it can be a commercial, and we're taking like 2 hours to do one scene, and really thinking through everything. And we had like 20-page scripts that everything sort of lined out. Just a lot of details. We were thinking a lot about set design, and I had just enough hands in everything, and that's kind of how I like to work, is just being able to touch everything but not having to go all the way in and like be super controlling on it. So I had a really good team, and it was just interesting to work with people who had experience in like art design, and really good cinematographer and director of photography that I had worked with a little bit before, but not on the project this scale, where we were able to actually like think about stuff and that next level of detail. We had a couple really good locations for what we were trying to do. It was fun. There's like a little bit of humor to it. That was just like fun energy.
Was this the golf club one?
Yeah.
Dude, that golf club is hilarious.
Yeah, so like
you guys had a budget for props too, which is like really
we spent like
really
$1,500 on a custom golf club that in short the products that they had was like they can do all these different things with one software. It was like an all-in-one software. So we made like an all-in-one golf club that had like a putter, driver, and we had this really good actor who was just like, he was like really whatever. Without going into all the details of it, it was just cool to play through all of the, like, to have something that wasn't just like a boring corporate video with like that much money to spend and like that much budget to kind of work with. And so it was. And the energy was great too. The client was awesome. Like I said, I worked with her for like 3 years prior, so we had a really good relationship. She trusted me with a lot of stuff. I trusted her with a lot of stuff. So I would say overall, and that was like the shoot was only over 1 weekend in Columbus, but it was probably like 4 or 5 months of like work leading up to it, and then being in post production after it. So it was a big chunk of that year was. Thinking on that, so I think that was probably part of it too. It's like that in terms of time, that was like a pretty big thing, and they were super happy with it. They had great results from it. It's the first time they really invested in video, so it was kind of a risk, and some of the leadership was like unsure. So I felt good. Guys, stop. And then last advertising in a newspaper.
Did you guys do like Mac versus PC kind of style for like advertising your own agency?
Yeah. That was I would say that was probably the most fun. Because that was, it was just for us. There wasn't a client involved. Yeah. So like
full
we really got
freedom for everything.
Yeah. And the 2 actors that we had for that were awesome. They're both in Columbus. Yeah. One of them, actually, he was on the pod.
You know Anthony?
Yeah.
Tony?
Yeah, he's in those ads.
No way. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's a small
Oh
world,
my
dude.
God.
Yeah, I saw that Anthony Dane, right?
Yes.
He's that actor in that
Yeah.
Mac versus Pete. Yeah. So we just like played the same music, like shot it over a white cyc wall. Yeah, we put some of that out. We're actually like looking at resurfacing that. We're about to launch our new agency website here in the next 30 days. And we're looking at pulling some of that stuff back up and reworking it a little bit because now we're actually going to be doing more marketing spend than we were then. Like we kind of like tossed some out and got like a feel for it.
Most of it was just inbound, right? People were reaching out to you for.
Exactly. So that was the first time we were.
Which is crazy to build that big of a book of business without really doing any marketing spend.
Yeah.
On your guys' end.
Yep. Word of mouth in Columbus, and yeah, that is one thing that I'll say is cool about having a company in Columbus. I guess compared to I know people who or have been running sort of parallel after graduating as I had, who were doing video and stuff in Columbus when we were in college, and they're in bigger markets. They're in like New York and LA and stuff. And in Columbus, I do feel like you're kind of able to just like reach a little bit more because there's like not as, it's not as competitive, obviously.
Right.
So
is it just like saturated in those other cities in terms of like agencies?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard and from what I've seen, obviously there's more spending that's happening there too. Supply and demand is both higher, but yeah, I feel like that's been to our benefit. There's not a lot of agencies that are in Columbus that do exactly what we do. So
that's awesome. How would you explain your process for like managing the vibe of a set? Like I know sometimes you're not always directing and sometimes you are. So do you have like a certain strategy, or does it kind of depend on maybe the artistic tone or goal of the shoot, Yeah. And that maybe kind of determines how you manage the set. I mean, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like, it obviously changes a lot with the scale. Like we do shoots that are 2 people. I've shot a bunch of stuff just on my own, especially at the beginning. I think the biggest thing, regardless if it's 2 people or 12 people that we have that are, running the shoot, is there's almost always a client, someone representing the client that's there. Like if they're helping to like run us through spaces, or they're helping us, make sure that whatever they need is being, captured. Just make sure that they feel good, because at the end of the day, that's what has been the most, like most of our business is reoccurring business.
Sure.
So it's like, if we can just really work to make sure that our clients are happy through the entire process, that's kind of, for me, like the first order. And then after that, because at this point, I guess I'm speaking now more too, because we've just done it so long that I kind of know, like we know all the basic pre-production stuff that we need, so that we don't get there and we're scrambling, know what we need to do when we're on set, and know what we need to do in the edit to make sure that all that stuff goes smoothly. That's kind of just like checking boxes, it feels like at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of more building that relationship with the client and making sure that they feel like, these guys are thinking through all the stuff that I wouldn't really have thought through before this. So, yeah, I would say that that's kind of taken the highest priority. And that's kind of what we've built our team around, is like people who can really communicate clearly with the client. Like I've hired people that I know can be on a client call if I'm not, and carry themselves well, ask the right questions, like assert confidence, and talk the talk and do everything. So I feel like that's, at least in this stage, like the most important thing for us whenever we actually have a project. And then when we're bidding it, trying to come up with just like taking a little bit of extra time, an extra hour or two. Me and
what do
my
you mean by
partner
bidding it?
So there's some cases where people will send out like an RFP, or request for proposal. Where we basically like say, if they give us a budget, like what we would do with it, come up with a couple ideas, give them some inspiration, like examples that we see that we would like to try to integrate and like recreate. So in those cases, I feel like we're leading with more of the creative, and like kind of like trying to make sure that it's going to feel different working with us than working with somebody else, because this is sort of how we're thinking about it and approaching it. But then after that happens, it's kind of all just making sure that the client feels heard and seen, and that we're delivering on everything that we said that we were going to.
Yeah. Do most clients know what they want, or does some of it like come from your team prying with questions?
They probably think they know what they want.
Yeah, that's like, yeah, it's there's some that do, and they're awesome. There's some that don't, and it's fine when they give us that space.
The freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there's that shitty Venn diagram middle space where it's like people who don't know what they want,
But don't want you to have the freedom.
and don't give us the space to kind of figure it out like collaboratively or with them or in a way that's at all productive.
Just giving
and
you
efficient.
restrictions all
Like
night.
it's like just like really jamming us up at every intersection. So, but yeah, it's been awesome, and like it's been a really cool thing to know how to. I mean, we have all these cameras and stuff too, so I feel like it's been cool. Like every time I go on a trip, I'll bring a camera, and like just knowing video editing software and stuff, I feel like it's just the type of company I guess that it is, and whatever has been cool outside of work too.
Yeah, you just did like that rodeo edit, which
Yeah.
is very,
Oh
very
yeah, the
Mhm.
rodeo one.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what last night's edit looks like.
Yeah, that's me too.
We'll talk-
As soon as this podcast is over, we're gonna be.
Yeah, we'll
ripping
talk
through
about that
footage.
later.
Yeah.
Hopwood,
Yeah.
I want to talk to you, or give you some space to kind of talk about what you got going on. So we definitely want to hear updates, but do you want to tell folks what you're doing and kind of catch people up to the Hopwood Singapore situation?
Yeah, so I moved to Singapore in, I guess, beginning of May this year to start a business with my friend who is out here for work. And we're starting a supplement company that's focused kind of on the wave of hybrid athletes that, Sean was talking about morning routines earlier. There's quite Instagrammable workout regimens lately. And so we're kind of trying to create supplements that target them and focus on bringing athletics and longevity together.
And so where did that inspiration come from?
Yeah, I mean, it came from one, recognizing the trend, but also two, just being somebody who trained as, how what people call hybrid athletics now, where before I just used to lift 3-4 times a week and run on the other days, and I just consider that working out. And now that's a fancy thing to do, apparently. So it was a bit of that, and also just having some more injuries lately for whatever unknown reason, really made me think more about kind of recovery and like the longevity movement that's going on without having to give up my performance today. And my co-founder does a lot of the High Rocks events. So he just did High Rocks last month, and then he'll do one at the end of this month, I believe. High Rocks is they call it the World Series of Fitness Racing. And so the way to think about it is it's kind of like CrossFit, but with more running and less weight. So essentially you run 1,000 meters, you do one particular type of exercise, and you run another 1,000 meters, then you do another type of exercise, and you do 8 rounds of that. And it's things like, the rowing erg, the ski erg, wall balls, lunges. And it's a kind of a race like that. So it's like CrossFit, but more accessible is how I think of it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And funny enough, when we were at the Singapore High Rocks event last month, the amount of people you see cramping up at this thing is just insane. Like it's like on the run, there are just so many people dying, running around the track that just like stop and like can't like move their leg. And we're like, oh, perfect. We're like, what we're creating is a performance hydration supplement. And we're like, this is exactly what these people need. Because like everyone's just dying, cramping.
Yeah.
So it's bit of personal experience, seeing what's going on in kind of the health and fitness world, and trying to make those two ends meet to have a good product for the consumer for things that are going on.
So before we get onto what you're working on now and a little bit of the journey, what was your background? Because you kind of started off doing something a little bit different. So kind of explain what you were doing and then how that led into where you are now.
You mean like work-wise?
Yeah, work-wise, yes.
Yeah, so I've had a weird career. I'll keep it short though. I used to be a sales engineer at a tech company, and I did not study engineering. So I definitely had a job that I was not the most qualified for. So I did that for 3 years. And then I worked in private wealth management at a very large bank, which I was also not qualified for because I didn't study finance. And then or I guess now I work at a startup, a fintech startup, and I do kind of marketing strategy and social media management for them, which I was also not qualified for as I haven't done that before. So I still do that full time, but then I run this business with the rest of my free time.
You've always had like entrepreneurial projects and things like Hopwood, like the pants and everything.
Oh,
too,
I forgot about the pants.
Yeah.
Yep. Through line in your like supplementing your career and experience. You probably picked up a lot of those social media management things along the way too, when you were like exploring Hopwoods and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And even when I was doing those other jobs, I was always kind of doing something on the side, even if it was just learning. I mean, even when I was at my tech job, I made a bunch of like video tutorial stuff of how to like use our particular products, and I had to learn how to use the editing software and how to kind of like create a story around it, which kind of translates into some of the video editing I do now for my job to understand, like take my boss's webinars, how to make it a better story, how we'll engage with the customer, and then ultimately also the technical skills of editing. I'm no Mitch, but I know enough to be dangerous.
Nice. I love it. Cool. So you moved to Singapore. What were the first kind of couple steps that you had to take to kind of get the ball rolling?
Yeah, so first we went to China for a week to go to something called the Canton Fair, where 2 times a year, like a lot of the manufacturers in China show up to this one convention center that's essentially built for this fair. And so we went specifically kind of for like the supplement consumer goods section of the fair. And so this fair, just to give the listener a reference point, I think it's 3 different levels, and each convention hall is about the size of a football field, and there's about 13 convention halls per floor. So the size of this thing is like a convention hall you've never seen before. Like you can't see it from one end to the other when you're like outside, right? It's just like it's like too big. So we were there for a week, met with a bunch of manufacturers, came back here, and just started hitting up the manufacturers to try to get our formulation of what we wanted. We spent about a week kind of formulating, researching, thinking about products we used and what we were going to make, nailed that down, sent the formulation out to just kind of see who could make it. And since then, have been working with a few manufacturers to get the product to us.
And so what are the kind of goals that you have in the next couple months, and what are you hoping to accomplish here?
Yeah, so next few months is something that we've just kind of gotten loosely done is our board of advisors. So it's not a board of advisors you'd think of in like the business sense, but we wanted to have like a team of experts and scientists behind us so that for this product and for any future product we make, we know that not only are we making a good product that, kind of meets, general medical standards, but we're making a product that meets the needs of our specific consumers. So we have a longevity dietitian, we have a longevity researcher, and an exercise science researcher to kind of make sure that whatever we're making meets our specific niche and is also supported by the science, so that we're not just more or less selling bullshit. So we kind of have that loosely. We don't have the terms figured out with them yet, just because we're not about to go to market. So we don't know exactly how everything will stand. But we kind of got that done, which is nice. We are starting to build our kind of team of influencers and like our go-to-market strategy. And we actually had a setback recently of that. We had to fire our manufacturer we thought we were going to go with because we, long story short, realized they were fucking us. And so we have started reaching out to new manufacturers to get new samples to hopefully find the one we'll go with.
How are they fucking you?
So we, I I'm trying to think of how to say this succinctly, because there's a lot of like things that were red flags that we were trying to be like, okay, like maybe we didn't know, right? Give them benefit of the doubt thing. But pretty much what happened at the end of the day was that they said we couldn't use this one ingredient because it didn't meet, like we weren't allowed to for regulatory purposes. And then we were trying to find like all these alternatives to it, and then they kept saying we can't do any of them. And then they came back to us saying, actually, we can do it, but we can only do it at half the dose, and they could do it at half the dose for 4 times the price. And then we were like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. And they go, oh, well, we were like quoting you at this, which was like a quarter of the ingredients we asked for. And if you want it full, it's going to be this price. And we go like, at what point do we ever say we wanted that? And they're like, they literally said, oh, well, it's an athletic supplement, so we cut it. And we're like, how does that make any sense? Like, how does that justify like what like
Was there like language barriers there, or like are these conversations that you guys are having in person or on the phone, or like what?
we're having them in person. They're over email and WhatsApp. So like, things are constantly being reconfirmed. And so we were just like this makes no sense. And there are other things that like, don't make sense, in the sense that they were like, oh, you want creatine in your product. Creatine's really expensive. Jake, you know this. Creatine is dirt cheap. Like, we had another manufacturer that we're talking to, and we did an analysis on our end. If you were to buy all of the supplements to make our product yourself, what would the price be, right? Because if we're not cheaper than that, why would you take this product? And one of the people quoted us actually more than it would be to buy all the things yourself. And we were like, how does this make any sense? I was like, you're obviously like trying to screw us here. Like, if like we can make it by hand cheaper than you can. So, and it's just like things like that. And then, other things where they're like, just like being dishonest in the beginning and then like changing their mind after. And I was like, okay, clearly like we gave you too much benefit of the doubt, and now we need to like go with someone else because we can't rely on you to give us, good product.
Well, not nice, but I mean, I'm glad that you caught them.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's one of those things where it's a blessing in disguise, and we get to find a really good one now, and things will all be okay.
Oh, for sure. Because I mean, imagine you go to product, and then they continue to fuck you, and the product suffers. So that's good. You're shopping around. Then you've got some contenders.
Yeah, we reached out to like 8 on Friday. We've had 2, I think, get back to us already. And then we have some other ones in our back pocket that are kind of longer shot options. So we're waiting to see. Just because we have to balance, being a new company, you want a lower minimum order quantity so you're not have a ton of product if you can't sell it, right? But with that, you have to go to a smaller supplier. Where if we, we're ordering 100,000 units, any of the big supplement manufacturer, co-manufacturers would talk to us in a heartbeat. But we don't know if we can move, 100 boxes, let alone 100,000 boxes. So in due time, we'll get there.
Yeah. Okay. So in the meantime, what are you able to work on while you're kind of figuring out who's going to be your production people?
Yeah, so we're working on the website. At some point we'll be kind of redoing it, because I've had the great fortune of meeting somebody in Singapore who's well known in the e-com space for conversion rate optimization, which is just how you think about the funnel of your web pages to get someone to buy. So I've had gotten some great insights from him and kind of know what we need to do. Also working out building at the science side of our website, so that when people go and they want to know, why did you include what product and why did you include that much of it, and does it actually work? We have a kind of built out section of, the ingredients, why our product, how it's different than other products, all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit of SEO, a little bit of just genuine education. And then, just continuing to kind of like tell people in the community about our product, start to build out the social medias a little bit so that we have, a little bit of a platform when we launch online, and just kind of continue to meet people in the space. There's always something you can be doing.
Yeah, no doubt. In the startup space, that's definitely true. How do you go about just managing all of those moving parts and managing your sanity and managing those moving parts?
Yeah, it's I'm big on a to-do list. So I just have a to-do list of all the things that I need to do or look at. And then every day I just kind of prioritize of what's the most important thing. And I always try to think of like what's the most important urgently versus like what's the most important overall. Because just because it's important doesn't mean it's urgent. Just because it's urgent doesn't mean it's important, right? So you just got to make sure you're prioritizing correctly. And luckily, being in the early stage, uh, you don't have to worry about too much about like some big overlooming thing. It's like what are the key things you need, like the product, and you need the website for people to buy, right? And then everything else, kind of falls in and fills in around that. But you need, the foundation to build the house. So, those are kind of the two focuses, and then we think about everything else afterwards.
Well said. Why Singapore?
Kind of three reasons. One, my buddy was here, and this is a great excuse for me to work abroad without having to wait for a company to, give me the privilege of working abroad. Two, setting up a company here is very business friendly. So the tax structure is really good for businesses. Very easy to start a business here. Honestly, probably kind of like how the U.S. was in like the 70s or 80s or something. And three was that one of the tricky things about starting a business in the U.S. is that the market is very competitive. The country is huge, so it can be kind of hard to kind of pick a place to build your brand and grow from there. And it's very expensive from an ad perspective. Where in Singapore, it's one country, it's kind of one area. For our specific consumer, they are very similar to the U.S. Consumer, where they have the propensity to buy, they have the money, and they have the education around product and the fitness to want to buy the product and not need too much education up front. And so we saw it as a really good controlled kind of test bed to see if it's going to work before launching in a place like the US. It's also a little bit less competitive. Ad spend is a little cheaper for conversion, but you still get a similar effect to the US in that sense.
Something that Sean and I, so last night there was a little rooftop party that we threw, or there's a birthday for a DJ, and we'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. But Sean and I went for a little walk before the last part of the set, and one of the things that we were talking about was just having confidence in the future and how to justify having confidence in the future. And so I wanted to open the floor up to all of you guys, and maybe to provide a little bit more context. It was in the sense of like, Hopwood, you're out there starting this company, and almost like what you were saying when you were talking about your other jobs, like, I'm not qualified to do this, but I'm doing it. I'm not qualified to do this, but I'm doing it. And then you put yourself out there to, start this company. And, Mitch, you did the same with Elevate. And, Sean, you've had a lot of various ventures and whatnot. How do you trust yourself to execute on your dreams and your goals? Yeah, I guess that's the goal, or I guess that's the question. And so whoever kind of wants to hop in on that, or Sean, if you want to provide any clarification from the conversation from last night.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a dream is it's intangible, right? So it's like it's not real, and I think people can maybe delude themselves or go crazy if they're not reaching their dream or achieving whatever they set out to achieve. But that's part of the process, going from like 0 to 1, or going from like just an idea to actually realizing the dream is like a really challenging space to be. So I think that was kind of the object of our conversation of like, how do you continue pushing forward until it's actually realized? Because you can kind of, I don't know, go crazy or gaslight yourself that, hey, this isn't possible.
Yeah, who am I to do this?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was kind of the object of our discussion.
Yeah. So like Mitch, like was there ever a point when you were starting to Elevate in 2015, or maybe when it got more business, like when you were kind of like, okay, we're doing this, but like, why am I doing this? Like, should I be doing this? Like, how did you overcome doubts, if you ever had any?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just like, I knew I didn't want to. So I studied engineering in college, and I had a couple internships where I was doing that, and I just felt so much more invigorated. It was kind of just like a gut thing, really. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to do that. I have more like fun doing this. This is going to be more risk and more whatever, but like, there's like enough stability and certainty that I can like put my foot here, and then just you take the next step, and you take the next step, and you take the next step. So it's kind of like, yeah, I feel like just sort of starting with trusting your gut, and then just take a semi-sure step and just kind of see where you go. I mean, you're talking about it earlier too. It's just kind of like iterating and everything. So
was there a time when like you weren't sure it was going to work out?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, through the time that I've had the company too, there's been like periods where I've like done some other stuff to just kind of like supplement and just like make sure I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket, just in case things do kind of shift. So I mean, there's definitely seasons of that for sure. Just like with anything, like even if you have like a corporate job, like there's just like you're gonna have doubts and you're gonna be questioning stuff.
I've had so many jobs. I'm like, hey, are they going to become insolvent? Will I have a job like in the next month, or are they going to make it through? I know, Hopwood, you experienced that.
I know you experienced that too, Sean.
It's like it's a really challenging spot to be in. You're like, is this company going to be around? Am I going to have a paycheck? And you can't really plan a future meaningfully if you don't have, a promise of I can pay for this this future that I want. So yeah, it's like a hard spot to be in if you don't think this company's going to be around.
Yeah, I was listening to something where it's just talking about like how humans just want certainty like all the time.
Yeah.
But we never actually can get it. It's as much as you want it, there's just always going to be that. So it's just like, if you really like to, I mean, the podcast for you, like you're just like something that keeps coming to you. It's like, I keep thinking about it. I keep wanting to do it.
Well, it started to become a regret. Like,
and
I'm not big on regrets. I regret very little, but it was starting to get to the point where I'm like feeling anxious. The anxiety of not doing it was starting to overpower the anxiety of being judged for doing it.
Yeah. And then the amount of time that you're thinking about doing it, like you could have just done it.
Yeah.
It's like, now I'm sitting here for 2 hours, like thinking about what, it's
like
done
a pod in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I think too, like when you have like these like dreams that are intangible, it's like just to the point of like starting, it's like action creates information, and you can't really, act accordingly if you don't have all the information. So just doing anything is gonna give you more information, feedback to go forward in a better way. So I think like when you look at a big goal or something that you want, it's like you got to do something, because there's a lot of space between here and there, and you'll pick it up along the way as long as you just kind of like break ground somewhere. Which is this podcast is kind of a testament to that.
Yeah, and going back to what we were talking about, how all of us linking from the beginning, like I mean, even just hearing Hopwood, like all the stuff that you've done in the last 3 months.
The Ballz Deep King. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You're so balls deep in. I love it.
Yeah. You're on the other side of the globe right now. It's 9 a.m. where you're at or whatever. And, so I don't know. I think it's cool to just like when you start to take some of those risks, I feel like, at least for me, you just kind of like are sort of attracting that more. You're like around people more. Yeah. There's like kind of like that energy that you just sort of carry when you're telling other people. They think it's interesting. They like introduce you to somebody who's doing something like taking similar sort of entrepreneurial risks, or like has their own thing, their own side thing. That's, then just like, I feel like there's a lot of like exponential sort of progression that happens just by like taking just a couple small different steps.
And I think something too that like, people don't think about is, a lot of times when you see someone, like let's say you see someone who's a big podcaster, right? So, Jake, you're starting this podcast, but you see someone like Rogan or like Tim Ferriss or Chris Williamson, and you're like, oh, they do this full time. Like maybe you want to do that, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, well, like I don't have the time. It's like, well, when Rogan started his, one, podcasts weren't even a thing, right? So not only were like people not listening, like there was no one to listen, really.
Yeah.
And right then, like no one listened to podcasts. It was like he's one of the first. Like he was also an actor who like became the Fear Factor guy, where before that, like he was really a stand-up comedian, which, when you're especially a stand-up comedian in the early 2000s, it's not like Kevin Hart now, who like will be a billionaire, right? He wasn't making probably a ton of money. And so it's like you can take strategic risks when you do things to start, right? Like, so Jake still has a full-time job, right? But he takes a few hours a week to put out these episodes. Like I still have a full-time job, and like to come out here, I have like a 10 part decision-making framework that I look at to make sure like, okay, is this like a smart risk I'm taking? Or is this something that's like just kind of a pipe dream that's actually like incredibly stupid for me to do? And like that kind of gives me the confidence of like doing something without like, thinking like, oh, am I going to regret it? Because if I go through this framework, then I can think, oh, like, no, I won't. And it's like actually a smart idea for me to do this versus like, oh, like, yeah, that would actually like quitting my job to come out here to do this would be a horrible idea. Like I would not advise, someone to like quit their job to chase their dream. It's like you can chase your dream after work until it becomes your full-time thing. And I think, kind of realizing that can give you some confidence to, kind of take that step. Because if you can make it start to work while you're, still supporting yourself other ways, you can definitely make it work in the long run and it become your full thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And how you mentioned that sort of, 10-step checklist. There was a time, and it's so funny because, sometimes I'm anxious about starting stuff, but like, in that summer of 2019, I was a manager at a hotel, like just not even close to what I'm doing now. And, a mutual friend of ours, Eric, and I keep saying this because it's come up a couple times, but we'll get him on here. But he had this like short-term rental Airbnb cleaning company. And even though my major was outdoor rec, like I have a major in playing outside, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm doing this sort of hospitality thing now. I can join this startup and get like startup experience. And even though I don't really like Airbnbs aren't necessarily my passion, I saw the value in a lot of transferable skills, but I didn't have that sort of checklist. And I literally just jumped into it without like thinking at all. I did quit my job at a hotel. I did take a pay cut. Granted, like I didn't have to support anyone except myself. And I was still in Ohio, so I could do that. But sometimes it's good to do that. And it ended up being fruitful, not necessarily like monetarily for me at the time, but in building relationships. And, randomly Mitch knows Eric. I guess maybe not so randomly, but, now I have my own Airbnb, and here we are 5 years later, and, there's just positive outcomes that can come from things, even if the initial thing doesn't work out.
Yeah, you don't know how things are going to pay off, like in the beginning too. I don't think that was that big of a risk either, because you were like atrophying at ESA, you weren't learning anything. And
oh, for sure.
I
need to get
when you're
out
so
of there.
young, I feel like you're not gonna command a huge like salary anyway. So experience trumps everything. So if you can find a place where you get experience, but then also getting paid, then I feel like that was totally reasonable.
Oh, it totally was. And Eric's a good friend to this day, and and it also, what it really made me, in addition to being a park ranger, right, like the summer before, that between being a park ranger and then doing the Air Butler thing, it really helped me to get to know Columbus. And it really actually made me fall in love with the city, because I was like driving around and experiencing all the nooks and crannies and finding like cool spots. And it made me actually, Eric talks about this a lot, like wanting to be a steward of the city and like a host who cares. And so like, that was something I didn't have before, but now I actually have like city pride, and like, I don't know, it's cool how things end up working out in unintended ways when you do decide maybe to make that sort of balls deep jump.
Yeah.
Sean, I want to touch on purpose because that has been like your search for the past several years, and you've got this really good gig going on, and you can speak to work if you want, but maybe just kind of speaking on what it was like to search for that and the catharsis of.
That's so heady, dude. I don't really have probably good answers for any of that. I think I don't know. For me, I mean, especially when we were living together, and before then, and since then, I've just been trying to prevent a midlife crisis, which is probably not a good object of focus for anything. But it's I just want to make sure that I'm doing things today that are gonna make sure that I don't get divorced, marry a stripper, and buy a Corvette. That's.
Hey, dude, I've been around the world. It could be worse.
That's your checklist?
Yeah,
he's got the 10-part checklist. You're just don't
it's my
checklist.
And so, I don't know. I think, so when you're making the choice to go to Elevate instead of pursue engineering, it's what excites you and following that, even if it's not I keep using tangible, but it's all I have. But if it's not tangible or real, it's just I got to follow this because this feels right. And so that was when we were living together, I wanted to get into design and, product. And so,
what were you working on?
So I just got a job at Nationwide Insurance as a quality engineer. And so that's just running automated test scripts, really just testing software, making sure that it's working as intended. So I was kind of on my way then getting on a product team and understanding, Scrum and Agile, product delivery. But wanting to be more on the design side, it just took that's what was interested me, and that's kind of where I wanted to apply focus and everything. So kind of just wanted to follow that, and that felt justifiable, and then that would.
Well, it's crazy how much you dove into that sort of UX stuff because at the time I was working on my personal training certificate, even though I was still in hospitality. And, I would put good time in studying, and I was doing some other studying as well. But you have a marathon sort of work ethic where you get so single-mindedly obsessed.
Yeah.
I remember when Sean was doing that, and dude, you were just grinding for months.
Insane.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so so when you talk about the anxiety of not doing something, and where the regret eclipses just stasis, not doing anything, I just couldn't help it. It's I have to do this, and the sooner I do this, and the faster I get this completed, the more I learn quicker, then the sooner I'll arrive at, my destination. And so once you have an idea of where you want to go, then it's okay, here's the goal, reverse engineer it, and what do I need to do to get there? Once you have the steps, it's the only thing stopping you from getting to the end faster is just checking off these steps and accumulating as much experience as you need. So that was kind of what drove it. And I'm a really anxious person, and I think that disposition just drove me to go heads down and focus. So that's kind of a driver.
Yeah, I think as much as it can suck to be anxious, I think just how on the opposite side of every strength there's a weakness. I think also some things that can feel like a curse can also be a bit of a gift, in that you could be so single-mindedly obsessed. Obviously it can be tough sometimes to find balance.
Yeah, that's so challenging.
And so that maybe is a different conversation in terms of how to manage that. But in terms of pursuing your passions and getting after it, I mean, I remember being envious of your single-minded obsessiveness, where it's I can grind pretty solidly, I guess, but it would just be 5 hours. You would just disappear and come out and be hey, dude, I just need to bang out a little bit more, and then we can play some Halo. And I'm shit, okay.
I think when you see those influencers or whatever that have hey, this is how you do a day, that's what works for them. And maybe it doesn't, but it's just clickable. But I think understanding who you are and then leaning into your sensibilities is really probably the first step. Just understanding what moves you and what doesn't, and then making sure that you're kind of doubling down on what is moving you, and then kind of ignoring the things that don't, even if it is what people are saying. You don't have to get up at 4 a.m. If that doesn't work for you, that doesn't work for you. If you do your best work at night, I mean, sleep in, dude. So I think those were just understanding that, and then that helped like a lot.
Yeah, I did. Oh, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like, I mean, we've known each other for like 3 years, and I feel like just watching your journey over that time and like what you're doing now. I don't know if you really like said exactly what you're doing now, but like out of a lot of the people that I graduated with and that I know, like you're one of the most aligned in what you're doing, like every day for work with what your interest is and like what you find passion in. Like I feel like it's just been cool to kind of watch that, like watch you like want that, and like the different companies that you work for and like the different projects that you've been on and roles that you've had. Like now you're like owning exactly what you've wanted to be.
It's crazy.
For a really long time.
Yeah,
so sick.
At that.
Yeah, I've been
so sick.
It's been awesome, man, to see you do what you do now, because I know that this journey. I mean, even back to like Highland days, like, I mean, you graduated OU in 3.5 years.
It was
3. And so you've been in the workforce a little bit longer.
21, yeah.
And so, this sort of 8 year long journey is a real testament to your passion and you chasing your.
It takes a long time.
It takes a while.
Long fucking
takes a while. Yeah. Well, so Hopwood, I know we probably got like 10 minutes. There's a couple things I want to talk about. One, a quick update on my end for you guys. So obviously,
yeah, let's hear it. I've
been doing the pod. And that's been good. And, the main thing, and Hoppy, I texted you about this a while ago, and I just still haven't done it, is I just need to follow more creators. And, I was talking with and people who follow creators. And part of that has just been time management, not necessarily on my behalf. Like, I could schedule some time to do it. So, like, I could do that. But my wife has agreed to help me manage what I use as this Riverside sort of interface. She's going to help me manage that and like help me post clips, but also help me follow people. So that kind of takes that off of me, just because between day job and pod editing and finding guests and dadding, time is valuable. And so she's going to help me with that. And so I'm hoping to grow the channel a little bit in that way. And then coming up in March is the Arnold Classic. And I'm not doing any sort of bodybuilding competition or anything like that. But they do have this event called the Arnold Pump and Run. And my dad did it a handful of times growing up. And basically the premise is, if you don't know, you bench press your body weight and you can do it up to 30 repetitions. And then an hour or so later, you then run a 5K. And every rep of your body weight in the bench is 30 seconds off of your 5K time. And so the winner isn't necessarily the person who does the 5K the fastest. It's the person who has the best ratio of bench press, max reps to 5K time.
So it's bench press, like one set, as many reps as you can, up to 30 if you can, and then that takes the time off your run. Okay.
Some people might get 10 reps and then run like a 14-minute 5K, but they don't win. Because they only
how many reps do you think you could do of body weight right now? What's body weight, like 165, 170?
I'm about 158.
Okay.
And if I were to do 158 right now, it probably wouldn't be that good because we've been staying up late and not eating it as much as I should. But if just ice cream. If this was during the week, if I did, let's say, like 155, or we'll just round up to 160, I could probably get it like 22 to 24 times. Yeah, and so I can do 150 30 times. I can do 155, depending on the day, like 25 to 28 times, and then 160, like we'll say 20 to 24. And that just depends on, did I have a long day of coaching, or have I been sleeping well, and how specific is my training, But yeah, and so I've been fucking around with those recently, though, trying to do like a test for building that up. And so my goal is to do the race. My best 5K in cross country in high school was a 16:52. Typically, the winners for the pump and run are like between a 16:20 and like a 17, and they hit their 30 reps. And I'm not in that sort of 5K shape right now, but it's like 8 months away or so. And so the goal right now is just to build some endurance, strength training structure, not as important, but basically just to the last 3 months, the last 12 weeks, build a workout plan for myself, complete the pump and run, hopefully do well. And, maybe like top 10, if I'm, being honest with myself, I think that's achievable, if I put the right sort of effort in the training. And then put my workout plan to sell on like a Fowler Fit tab under Fowler and Friends website. So get the Fowler and Friends website up, have a Fowler Fit tab, and then post pump and run, post my workout plan, and have it just be like full hybrid, exactly what you were talking about at the beginning. It used to be just you would lift and run, so just Jake's hybrid sort of workout plan. That's kind of the iteration of Fowler Fit I'm working on now, since I've kind of had to reprioritize since Airbnb and dad stuff happened. And so that's kind of what I'm shooting for in the next 8 months as far as making some progress in that realm goes.
I love it. Assuming I'm and I am pretty good on this road right now, that I'll be injury free. I definitely am gonna do a High Rocks next year, so I'll have my own fitness challenge coming up.
Let's go! I love it.
You could sponsor Jake with Element for the.
Excuse me, what did you just call my? With
sorry.
Element.
Sorry.
If we have product and stuff by then, I definitely would.
Nice.
We should, but we already had a Fire One manufacturer, so I don't want to make any promises.
Yeah, for sure. And then the second thing I want to talk about real quick, we got about 5 minutes off, but I want to be respectful of your time. Do you just want to talk about last night and kind of the production that went into it, and just
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we just threw a party. I have a friend here in Denver who is he DJs.
Sage.
And, yeah, Sage.
Shout out.
Yeah, he it was his birthday, and this was the second time we did this sort of event, I guess, just like on the rooftop of my apartment complex. Just rented the whole thing out and threw down. So it just worked out perfect that you guys were here for the weekend, and we had like 4 cameras running the whole time. We had lights. We had the whole thing. There's
a drone.
Yeah, we had a drone. 70-ish people that were up there, and it was just like, it was just a really fun night, really good time.
And what did you do?
DJ, baby.
Did you? Hell yeah.
It was
45
fucking
minutes
sick.
set. It was sick.
How long have you been doing it for?
3 weeks. So
It's funny is I've been telling myself that once the business is off the ground a little bit more, just because I have to put so much time into it, I want to buy one of the DJ boards, because all my friends in San Diego, like every time we'd throw a party, then we'd have like 8 different friends hop on the decks, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta learn this thing.
It's so fun, and it's not that hard. Like, I feel like it depends on who you're learning from. I'm learning from someone who's done it for 3 years, and like I feel like he gave me a lot of shortcuts and kind of cheat codes on what to look out for. But yeah, it was like I had 20 songs. It was like 45-minute long set. I had all of my cues set, so I knew like I was basically just doing transitions the whole time. I kind of knew what parts of all the songs I wanted to play. But yeah, I mean, just going back to what we've said, I guess, a couple times, it's something that I've been wanting to do for like 6 months, 12 months maybe. And then just moved here, met people who were doing it, and I was like, all right. And then when we had a date, it was like, okay, now I've got 3 weeks to figure out how to do this. Like, I'm just gonna do it.
I love it,
dude. I hope I'll see you performing at a Boiler Room in Singapore next year. They were missing you in the lineup this year.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. I might need your 10-step like. Make sure that I can fucking get there.
I'll send it to the group chat when we're done.
Perfect.
I do want to actually see that regardless.
Yeah, 100% see that.
But yeah, it was awesome.
Nice.
And we had a great day today, so yeah, it's been a good trip. I'm glad we're like running this. And...
Yeah, I'm so glad we got to do this. I think this is a special episode 10. The goal, I mean, we'll get to 20, but you mentioned Chris Williamson earlier, Hoppy, and him and that Alex Hormozy podcast where they talk about, once you get to 20 eps 20 episodes of a podcast, you're in the top 1% of people who have ever podcasted. And so I'll be excited to hit that milestone and get some viewership up and, keep the train running. We're coming up on an hour 20 here, so we can wrap it up, and then Hoppy, we can say goodbye off cast. But I really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you guys doing this. At least for me, I attribute some of the, just the fact that we've been able to do this podcast, the fact that it exists to you guys, and I'm very grateful to learn from you guys. And I definitely think about you guys when I'm being a bitch. And when I'm being a bitch in my head, I'm like, no, you can't let the fucking Ballz Deep boys down. can't let them down. And so, thank you guys for, being open to doing this. And it was a lot of fun. And we'll say it was the Ballz Deep podcast volume 1. And hopefully we can do one again in the future. But thank you all very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, man. Happy to be on the podcast we always heard was coming.
Yeah, that's right. Well, cool, everyone. Thank you for listening. Next episode, don't know who's going to be on it. We got a list. We'll figure it out, but we'll catch you on the next one. Peace. Fuck yeah, bitches.